Hey everybody, welcome to DadsDen of Pop Culture and a review of a great movie from 1966, Our Man Flint, starring James Coburn, directed by Daniel Mann. It's sometimes called a spy parody or a James Bond parody, and there is some truth in that, but there's actually a little bit more to it than a simple parody. There's comedy, but it's not overly comedic, like, say, a Pink Panther movie or something like that. And I thought it'd be interesting to take a look at it since I've just recently done some reviews of some other films, same period, inspired by the Bond craze. I'm talking about Modesty, Blaise. I'm talking about Fantomas. I'm talking about Danger, Diabolik. Now, all of those are based on comic strips or written works. Our Man Flint was a little bit more of an original piece. So, like I usually do, we're going to go through this film, look at the scenes, we're going to talk about the characters, we're going to talk about the overall plot, etc. And yes, there are going to be spoilers in this one, ladies and gentlemen. But, well, there's some good twists in this here and there. But overall, we're talking about a movie about a hero. So you can probably guess a little bit how it ends. Okay. 20th Century Fox, this always makes me think of Star Wars or Cannonball Run for some weird reason. I don't know why those two movies in particular rooted themselves into my brain with that 20th Century Fox logo. As the movie begins, we're going to witness a montage of disasters, storms, volcanic eruptions, avalanches. Of course, this is all stock footage. And then we're going to see a submarine moving underwater, nice and silent. And on board, these three, now, the man in the snappy little jacket there was initially at the periscope. The woman replaces him at the periscope. Maybe she is the one in charge. The third man kind of looks like a heavy. And they hand him this kind of a control box, which he adjusts. And then we see a dam bursting. Okay, so obviously, these three are behind these disasters, but how are they doing it, and why are they doing it? Well, the disasters, of course, have governments in a tizzy. There's a gathering in Washington, D.C., which is also racked by storms, and it's addressed by a man named Cramden, played by Lee J. Cobb. Great actor. Now, he gets to be a little more funny in this movie, but you normally see him in movies playing, to be kind of honest, playing the angry jerk. He played that role, and it seems like a lot of 50s dramas. But here he gets to be a little bit funnier. Great actor, though. Now, he is the head of an organization called ZOWIE, Z-O-W-I-E, standing apparently for Zonal Organization World Intelligence Espionage. And he lets all the assembled know the situation is grim. Whoever is doing this can control the weather and obviously also control volcanoes, because that's not weather. But they have their first break. Their first break in this case, a team of agents has the bad guys cornered, and and as he's saying that, see that little tube there over on the side? Yeah, it's like a pneumatic tube. Message comes through. Oh, wait, it was a trap. Another team is eliminated. Again, everybody's very grim. Who can stop these people? Well, 0008 of British intelligence, 0008, you get where they're going with that. He's busy on tracking down a narcotics ring. And so who are they going to get? Well, Cramden says, no, we need somebody from outside all these organizations, because clearly the bad guys, they got some kind of inside information or something, or they at least they know who we are and they know what we can do. We need an outside factor. We need a freelancer, somebody these people don't already know about. So they consult the computer. Now look at this set. Gorgeous. This is what I love about a lot of these 60s movies. And because, color wasn't completely new in the 60s, but it was relatively new, so it always kept it really bright. Great design, though, here. And of course, by the way, It's the cards. Love showing off old computer equipment in this when I get a chance. But so they roll the cards through. Everybody says, here's what we need. Put it all in. Every card comes up Derek Flint. And Cramden doesn't like it. Flint was under his command during the war. He's the wrong man. He can't follow orders, but everybody wants Flint. Cramden doesn't care. Don't care. We are not going to use Flint until he gets a call from the president. And the president says, get me Derek Flint. Okay, yes, sir. And by the way, the phone ring that you get when this goes off, very distinctive. Okay. I used it as my cell phone ring for years and years and years. It's loud as hell to freak people out around me when it would go off. That was the inspiration for the ring that you got in Austin Powers. So if you're an Austin Powers fan, you're going to find a few things that Austin Powers kind of, lifted in a good way from Our Man Flint. So we have the title, Our Man Flint. And up till now, we've gotten a nice little intro to this movie. Pretty efficient storytelling. We have an inkling about Derek Flint, clearly very capable, also a bit of a rebel. Okay, we know who the bad guys are. We know generally what they're capable of. All right, not a bad piece of work. The whole thing takes maybe, I don't know what it was, something like 5 minutes or so, 5-6 minutes. Good way to begin a movie like this. Okay, so now we have our credits. We get starring James Coburn. Coburn. I mean, the dude was just cool. He kind of personified cool in this period. You noticed on the movie poster even, the way his legs are sort of, very kind of casual. You get this idea. This is just a cool dude, man. James Coburn was perfect for this. And of course, Lee J. Cobb, we've already talked about him a little bit. Now, this is interesting. Gila Golan is one of our evildoers in this one. Now, the actress, her parents were murdered in the Holocaust. She was very, very young. She didn't know when she was born. She didn't know where she was born. Now, she was adopted by a Polish couple initially. She ended up in Israel. And because she was an Israeli and was in this film was banned in Lebanon. Interesting footnote, folks. And hey, thankfully, there's no hard feelings in the Middle East anymore about anything. Edward Mulhare was playing our submarine captain that we saw a moment ago. He's playing Rodney in this. Fellow 80s kids are going to recognize him as Devon from Knight Rider. And of course, he was also the ghost in The Ghost of Mrs. Muir. We're going to have music in this from a young Jerry Goldsmith, and I will note, this is right about the same time that a young John Williams was doing music for Lost in Space. So, from tiny acorns, great oaks grow. Our cinematographer, Daniel F. Fapp, no giggling from the youngsters, please, won an Academy Award for West Side Story. He also filmed The Great Escape. So this is a guy with skills. Our writers are Hal Finberg. There's not much about him that I could find online. And Ben Starr. Now, Starr, again for the 80s kids out there, co-created the TV sitcom Silver Spoons, and he helped develop The Facts of Life. So, hey. Directed, as I said before, by Daniel Mann. And our producer on this is Saul David. Now, right before this, he produced Von Ryan's Express. So this is a second film under a particular, working with a particular studio. 20th Century Fox. Daniel Mann directed 7 Oscar-nominated movies, 2 Tony Award-winning performances. So again, we got some really good talent behind what is supposedly just a spy parody. Well, we'll see about that. Okay, and now we finally get to see Our Man Flint, Derek Flint. He is, practicing karate here. We get the bit with... first we see him doing some moves, and then we got the guys come out and he fights each one by one. Now, I know Coburn, I believe at least, Coburn studied under Bruce Lee back in the day. And it looks like he's obviously doing this stuff. And we get a few bits of him doing martial arts. Looks pretty authentic that it's actually him doing it. It seems like he does some of his own stunt work in this as well. Well, while he's fighting those guys, an American military officer arrives to recruit him. As soon as he utters the word Cramden, he's rebuffed. He's like, no. And out he goes. Then we see him fencing. Okay, so keep in mind what we're doing here. We're telling the story, but we're also giving you a quick download of what Derek Flint is capable of doing. So he's fencing. Same thing happens. General comes in, mentions Cramden. No. Okay, well, Cramden does not take this well, and neither does the president, who is like, go talk to him yourself. We're getting Derek Flint for this thing. So off he goes. Arriving at Derek Flint's penthouse, elevator is flanked by his dogs. It kind of scares Cramden when he first walks in. It's a fun sequence. We're learning about Flint during all this. So understand that in terms of storytelling, you go, so this guy's walking in and who cares? You're getting a look at what Derek Flint's life is like. And that tells you a lot about who the character is, what he's like, especially in the context of the time period. If you were alive during 1966 and you see like that art on the wall, you're going to go, oh, he's one of those kind of people, right? Because it's not like a Norman Rockwell painting. All right. So Flint is kind of this male fantasy figure, although they do give you a little twist here, because, you hear male fantasy figure and a lot of people, a lot of women will think, oh, okay, so he's going to be some obnoxious guy who's blah. Not quite. And that's one of the fun things about this movie is the Flint character. And again, I think Coburn is one of the few people on earth who could have played it the way he played it and made it work, because he is one of those kind of characters who's like just good at everything. And that could get annoying in a movie unless it's very comedic. And like I said, this one leans towards comedy, but it's not just straight comedy all the way through. And so we see here his bedroom. Look at the kind of bed he sleeps on. It's kind of crazy. All right. But again, it defines the character and who he is. And we get this cool effect where he's woken up with this light shining in his face. I actually had an alarm clock that did that. And it was it didn't shine right in my face, but it was a very effective clock. But you see like this clear plastic panel come up out of that table, and it projects the view from the front door. And so he sees that Cramden is now waiting to see him. And that clearly means, he understands this, that Cramden is kind of desperate. And so the door slides open, and before Cramden can even walk in, the German Shepherd walks up, grabs him by his collar, his wrist, and leads him into the room. It's a great little detail. Notice here, so Flint arrives. Notice the distance. Notice how they set up this shot. The distance between them, it's physical, but obviously it's not only physical. Now, Cramden puts his hand out to shake, and the dog starts growling. Flint's like, put your arm down really slowly and smile. He goes, because if that dog thinks you're being aggressive towards me, he will rip you to shreds. Okay. The other thing I noticed in that scene is he addresses Cramden as sir. Okay. So now obviously Flint is not in love with this guy, but he clearly has at least some respect for him and what he's all about. Okay. So that's important, I think, to the story. And it's important who Flint is as a character. So Flint finally approaches him. You do get a handshake. Cramden does not know what the hell is going on, but it's a great introduction to the character and to this particular relationship. Well, Cramden is going to then explain what's up and what they need him for this job. And while he's doing it, he's getting this shave from this woman. Another woman comes in with the clothes he's going to maybe wear for the day. Third woman comes in, looks like a secretary, needs him to sign a paper. Now, these are not servants. This is not really not a harem. Although I could see how some people might mistake it for that. But these are, in fact, his significant others. And I mean that the way it sounds. Like it's not just like a dude who's got a lot of chicks. There's a little bit more to Derek Flint than that. And that's one of the things that kind of makes this an interesting movie. Well, Flint says, look, this will get solved without my help. I'm not interested. I'm not doing this kind of stuff anymore. That's that. Cramden blows up. You're selfish. And he walks out. You'll next see him getting off of an airplane. So he's flown like back to Washington, D.C., walks down the steps. He is greeted by a military guy with like some kind of a phone. Gets on it. Walks right back up the steps and gets back on the airplane. The president is like, no. We're getting Derek Flint. That's it. All right. Well, that night, Flint is dining at a fancy restaurant with his ladies. But evil is afoot. The bad guys have infiltrated the place, and an assassination attempt is made. A dart, I think with curare on it, is hurled via a harp string. But it hits Cramden instead of Flint, because Cramden showed up to make another pitch to try to get him on the team. Now, here's one thing about this movie. The pacing is a bit laconic. It's a little slow. Not so much compared to other movies of the time, but definitely to modern day movies. If you're younger, you may be getting a little bit bored with this one. It's true. And part of that's also because it's not just a pure action flick. They hold shots for a little bit longer than you would think. They take their time. Why? Because, yeah, there is action and there are some fight scenes, pretty decent choreography too, but it's more like it's investigation, stealth mode. It's that kind of thing. So they take their time as they work through things. So just be aware of that if you put this movie on. Well, Flint is right on the job, retrieves the dart, kind of gives it the little sniff. They always did that in old things because these guys are all such geniuses that they know the smell of the different poisons. And so he figures out what the poison is, quickly works to extract it with something he had handy. He says to one of his ladies, I think the dart was meant for me. Seems like I have a job whether I want one or not. Okay, so Flint is now officially on the job. But before he's fully briefed, he has to prepare with some meditation. Now, this is him. But he's balanced, his head on one chair, his feet on another, straight as a board. So there's kind of like this whole Zen thing going here. He's that kind of a character. It is actually him doing it, too. That does take a little core strength to pull that off. And I can remember when I was a kid, like, you're a boy. You're trying to figure out what it means to be a man. And you see a character like this. And he's like, oh, he's cool. He's cool at everything. He's great at everything. I want to be like that someday. Right. And you would try stuff like that. You'd get a couple chairs and you try it out because if I can handle this, then I'm going to be okay when I grow up and I'm going to be cool one day. Didn't really work, but we gave it a shot back then. All right. So and this is kind of important. He is awakened from this trance by a special watch. So it kind of flashes and then this little arm comes out and it sort of does this little move like this, pressing the back of his hand. And that's what wakes him out of the trance. Okay. So he wakes up, the women are there, he says goodbye, kind of gives instructions, make sure that we reschedule that dinner, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of like he's pretty casual. Yeah, I'm going to go into this dangerous mission, but of course I'm coming back. Not a problem. All right. So we next see him kind of getting the whole, briefing thing from Cramden. He's showing him, the equipment he's going to use for this thing, the gun. And he's kind of like, oh, it's a very nice gun. I don't really need that. Well, there's a knife comes out of the briefcase. Yeah. He goes, I got my own gear. Don't worry about that. I don't need all this stuff. Crude implements, as he puts them. All right. And at one point, just to prove this, he pulls out this pin, does something to it. And he's going, hold on. And he blows this dart out of it and nails a fly to the wall. So it's just kind of a way of saying, don't worry, I can handle this. I don't need this other stuff. Now, from this scene, though, you can see, yeah, we're doing sort of a Bond parody, but we're also showing a distinct character. And one of the things I really like about this is that Coburn doesn't play it for comedy. Like I said, it's not ha 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 all the time. He plays the character very seriously, even though he's a bit over the top. I think it gives a lot of heft to the film that otherwise wouldn't be there. I think it would be a little bit more of just a a goofy thing that you watch when you want to laugh. This one is kind of a cool spy film, as well as having some funny bits in it. Well, they get a report on the poison dart that had been used on Cramden, and it gives Flint his first clue. There are traces on it of 3 particular ingredients that he recognizes are ingredients in bouillabaisse. And in those particular amounts, ratios, they could only come from a relatively small section of Marseille. That's where he's going to go begin his investigation. Now, this kind of shows you a little bit here. Kind of a Sherlock Holmesy kind of character, right? Kind of reminds you even of like Adam West's Batman, you know. It's like this dude has this encyclopedic knowledge of everything. You just kind of go with it in this thing. Well, on the way out of the office, there's 2 Marines guarding, that double door there. And as he walks over, he basically attacks the 2 Marines. They fight, and he shoots them. Like Cramden comes out and sees him blowing these guys away very coolly. And he's like, all right, that's it, Flint, you're arrested. You just attacked 2 U.S. Marines. Well, he says, no, guys, calm down. They weren't real Marines. I noticed that they were wearing Battle of the Bulge ribbons. Cramden says, well, there are no Battle of... He goes, exactly, they're imposters. And, everybody calms down a little bit. And one guy finds the actual Marines knocked out in the room next door. One of them has already passed away. So keep in mind, again, real spy flick here. People are dying, and it's not done in a comical sort of way. Exactly, right? One of them already dead. The other one close to dying. And here we get a little MacGyver. So again, we're learning about what Flint is capable of. Okay, he's like, we got to jumpstart this guy's heart. There's a hanging lamp. Takes the light bulb out of this lamp. Grabs Cramden. Holding one of Cramden's hands, he sticks the other one up into the electrical socket and then puts his hand on this guy's chest. So he creates this chain to jumpstart him and bring him back to life. Okay, so again, it's over the top, but it's pretty fun over the top, and it has that MacGyver feel to it. Again, male fantasy, right? The ability to do all these incredible things. Also shows you, though, this whole sequence, that Flint can kill very well and very efficiently, very ruthlessly, if necessary. But he's also saved 2 lives up till this point. So you can see this is not a guy who's just a ruthless assassin by nature. This is not something that he enjoys doing. It's a skill, and any skill Flint is going to master if he can, including piloting. We'll get you a plane to Marseille. No. I have my own plane. Don't worry about that. And off he goes. Okay. Well, next stop is Marseille, and a tour of restaurants looking for the correct bouillabaisse. You see him walk into a restaurant. They bring it over. He, takes one taste. Very good. Pays the guy and leaves because he's got a lot of restaurants that he needs to check. Well, eventually, he's going to find this place, a real dive. But before he gets there, his prey is, in fact, there. One of the assassins, well, both of them, actually. The man is Hans Gruber. Yes, Hans Gruber. And he's in the dive eating the bouillabaisse. Okay, he's the one who left the traces of it on that dart. And the woman who shot the dart comes in and meets him. And she's a little bit annoyed because he's got this can of cold cream just sitting on the table. She's like, you can't let people see that. Why not? What's important about this can of cold? Well, we're going to find out what's important about it. Okay. So before that they can leave and get out of the place, Flint arrives, sits down. By the way, there's like a stripper performing this whole time. But he sits down, he orders the bouillabaisse, and there's this guy kind of harassing the woman on the stage. So he walks over, grabs him by the shoulder, guy turns around, punches him, knocks him like over this, I don't know, kind of an opening in the wall. And we find out that guy is 0008, the British agent. And this is a way that they contact each other to communicate. Kind of interesting, though, here, because, well, first of all, the guy kind of, to me, bore a little bit of resemblance to George Lazenby, even though this is a few years before he was Bond. But he mentioned something about the narcotics, very weird narcotics. And Flint asks him, is this tied to Spectre? So we actually get a Spectre reference. And he goes, no. Way bigger than Spectre. Galaxy. Galaxy. What does that mean? Okay. They finish it up. He throws 0008 out of the place. All right. So he ends up in the men's room, and this is where he's going to run into Hans Gruber. You see he has the gun on him there. We get one hell of a fight between the two of them. And it's kind of a funny bit, too. At one point, he knocks him into into one of the stalls. And, the door swings open and then closes. And Flint goes to follow, and it's like a pay toilet. So he has to dig a coin out so he can open the door. You see, kind of that's where some of the comedy comes in. It's not outrageous. It rolls with everything really nicely. It doesn't interrupt the action or the investigation. It's more of a mood than it is like okay, so but he takes care of the guy. And I mean, he takes care of the guy. Gruber pulls a knife on him, and Gruber does not leave that men's room alive. And there's actually a thing in here where when he's done, he changes the way he looks, and you got to see it to believe it. But Gila, the other woman there, yes, played by Gila, she knows something is going on in there, something wrong. So she empties something out of the cold cream can, and it ain't cold cream. Puts in a bomb and leaves it on the table. All right. He comes out, sees that, and he starts shooting Gruber's gun in the air, acting like he's crazy. Everybody runs out of the place, which gives him a chance to deal with the bomb. The bomb does go off, but he's gotten everybody away. He's hiding behind the bar. And this is actually really cool. That watch of his, he converts it along with a pen into a microscope so he can analyze a fragment from that cold cream can. And by doing so, he realizes that the cold cream was made in Rome. So that's the next place he has to go. There are a lot of little details, by the way, in this. I'm not giving everything away, so don't worry. Still worth your time to go watch this film. We get a brief interlude as the heads of Galaxy contact their operatives on the sub, and it is here that the operatives discover that Flint is alive. The heads of Galaxy checked up. There was no body, so they have failed. Okay. Now, one of those heads is played by Benson Fong, who played Charlie Chan's number 3 son, Tommy, in some of the old Charlie Chan films with Sidney Toler. So it's kind of fun seeing him in this. Well, Rodney there, he just wants to have his own shot at Flint. I'll take care of him. Gila is like, nope, I'm in charge of this. All right, so you see there's a little bit of a power play dynamic between the two of them. All right. But Gila says, look, I have found a weakness in Derek Flint. In fact, 4 weaknesses. Of course, she's referring to the women he loves. And to that end, we see a montage of those women being kidnapped. By the way, this scene probably had a lot of guys wondering if they had just seen what they think they had just seen. I'm still not sure myself, and I'm not a creep, so I wasn't like, going frame by frame through it. But yeah, it's like, whoa, got a little bit racy there, or at least it seemed to. Now, while Flint is driving around Rome with this cab driver looking for the correct cold cream, he lets the headquarters know by code, speaking through his lighter. He just speaks numbers and the numbers of that he is walking into a trap at the Exotica Beauty Factory. He knows it's a trap, but this is the only way to figure this stuff out. Cramden decides to leave for Rome immediately because, deep down, he still doesn't really trust that Flint's going to get this done. You get a nice scene when he gets to the Exotica Beauty Supply Company. He meets Gila for the first time, and she admits openly that she has tried to kill him twice. Wow, interesting. So there's no games here. But he does agree to meet with her later at her place to, as he says, discuss the weather. Remember the weather control thing? Yeah. So this is where we get the romantic interlude with the femme fatale. He learns that Galaxy is controlling the weather from inside a volcano. Oh, she can't tell him where just yet. By the way, definite points for an evil lair in a volcano. Austin Powers? Okay. But also, I think Bond did that as well. So we end up with a interrogation, and when it's over, Flint dresses to leave while Gila pretends to sleep. He steals a set of keys before he leaves, and thinks he's gotten away safely, but maybe not. He's played into their hands. But then again, maybe they're playing into his hands by thinking that he's played into their... Well, it's a little confusing here. But either way, she warns that he's heading back to the office to do some snooping around. And in fact, that's exactly what he does. It's a setup, but he finds this safe and he begins to crack it. And while this is happening, Cramden has figured out where he went. So he's bringing in the police, he's bringing in the army, the whole 9 yards. He thinks this is our chance to break up this spy ring that's behind all this stuff. Okay. Before they can get there, though, Rodney and a henchman trap Flint in the safe, where it's presumed he will suffocate. The safe is actually on a trailer backed into this building. So they simply drag the safe on the trailer out. When Cramden and all these people arrive, the place has been transformed into like this little bar and cafe. So like, what the heck? And the taxi driver's like, no, it was an office earlier, I'm telling you. Well, trapped in the safe, Flint, he's very cool. He's very calm. He continues snooping, gathers as much info as he can, figures out the location of Galaxy Island. And he gets onto the thing and he starts transmitting this information to headquarters, of course. And as he's telling headquarters, send a fleet to this island, blow it up, etc., that'll end the problem. He's listening in on Rodney and Gila in the front cab of this truck. And he finds out that they've kidnapped his ladies and they're on the island. So he says, whoa, hold on. Doesn't finish the transmission, doesn't give them the location of Galaxy Island yet, because he knows he's got to save these women. Okay. Well, ultimately, they find him in the safe, and it looks as though he's dead. So they put him in a coffin, they take a photo, they're sending that back to Cramden at headquarters. We've killed Flint. You have no hope. Okay. Is he really dead? Well, look at the way he's lying there with his hands. Yeah, okay, maybe he's not dead after all. Setup and payoff. Okay. Well, sure of their victory, Galaxy transmits their threat to the nations of the world, give us control, blah, blah, blah. We're going to set off all these volcanoes and their demands and all that other stuff. And Flint, being transported by sub back to their island, is awakened by that watch, the way he was earlier. And so he prepares. Now, at this point, he's still actually sealed in the coffin, but he's not going to stay there for real long. So they get to the place. There's kind of a procession of them moving his body through the complex. Gila and Rodney are congratulated on completing the mission, even though Rodney's going, well, we would have completed it a long time before then, but if it wasn't for her, she's getting personally involved. He's making that power play. It's going to be important later. But in transit, Flint has gotten out of the coffin. And we get this scene where he's on a forklift and he takes out one of the complex guards, and you get a no, and you're going, oh yeah, this is the inspiration for the steamroller scene in Austin Powers. Okay, but he does take out the guard. And again, when this guy takes somebody out, it's always with a very calm look on his face. There's a ruthlessness to him, like with Bond, but that it's sort of like, yeah, but it's really not what he lives for. He didn't want to do any of this stuff. He's kind of pressed into it, but if he's going to do it, he's going to do it to the hilt. Well, this gives him a chance to disguise himself in the guard's uniform, starts making his way through the complex, looking for his ladies, and boy, does he find ladies. This is kind of like the caldera of the volcano. So there's sun, etc. There's sand, there's a beach. A lot of people seem like they're having a lot of fun at Galaxy headquarters. Well, a call goes out and everybody begins heading for this kind of big headquarters building in the middle of this volcano. In front of it, there is this golden bald eagle. And when it spots him, it immediately attacks. And this is how they catch him. And he asks about it, and they go, well, it's been trained to attack Americans. And he goes, an anti-American bald eagle? Diabolical. Okay, so they take him in. We get a brief tour of the facility as they're walking through it. You can see they're working on all sorts of stuff, and apparently it has something to do with controlling other volcanoes. All right, very important here. One of the nice things about this movie is just the layout. It all seems casual, but they're feeding you all this information you need all the time, so you're not going to be confused when things start actually happening. Well, finally, he meets the heads of Galaxy. There's some wry humor here. The bad guys are very decent, and this is a chance they have, obviously, to strip him of that gadget, which they're very impressed by. Oh, American ingenuity. Well, Rodney makes another power play here to get ahead of Gila. He claims that Flint wouldn't be alive now if it wasn't for her and her personal feelings getting in the way. And it actually works. It actually works. Gila is going to be sent back for more programming. Programming? What's going? Yeah, these guys program, brainwash the people who work for them. And presumably, that's what they're going to be doing to his women. But this little betrayal by Rodney does form a crack in the edifice of Galaxy. She strikes out at him, and in the confusion, manages to get Flint's lighter, this gadget that does all sorts of cool things, back to him. Well, of course, with all the talk of brainwashing, Flint realizes what's happening to his ladies, and he's going to need to deal with that at some point. The scientists explain how they're going to take over the world and solve all of its problems with enough control. Sounds familiar, and I mean, not just from a lot of old movies, but also from the news that you get nowadays on your TV. And Flint is then taken off for his own brainwashing. But wait, no. He's too independent. We can't trust the brainwashing will work, that it won't wear off at some point. Best to return him to his elements. What? The electrofragmentizer. Love a good super scientific death trap. Okay. So here, Rodney tries to lord it over Flint and basically gets kneed in the nuts. Taken out. They're like, oh, you terrible man. But it's a good scene. I enjoyed it. Rodney is super annoying. It's enjoyable. I promise you that. Well, they take him into the room with the electrofragmentizer. Just as they're about to push him in, he strikes out, takes one guard off, drops that gadget, which sets off sort of a gas cloud, goes after the other guard. Both guards end up knocked into the electrofragmentizer and are disintegrated, as is his little gadget. Now, I like that. The gadgets are fun, but we're really here to see the hero win using his body and his mind and his spirit. And with the gadgets, when they kind of pop in and save the day at the end, sometimes it can feel a little bit like a Deus Ex Machina. So I think it's good. At least it gives him an extra challenge here when the stakes are getting a lot higher. Well, as the world prepares to capitulate to Galaxy, because what can they do? Flint finds his women and Gila in the programming chamber. There's these swirling discs. They're getting fed, information they're supposed to believe. Great 60s design here. I like it so much better than modern tech design in movies. It's always, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. There's something soulless about the new stuff. I just love the old stuff. That's just me. And by the way, the technician here checking on Gila, yes, that is Mr. Whipple, Dick Wilson. Don't squeeze the Charmin. Well, he gets more than squeezed by Flint, who takes him out. And this I love. How does Flint break her programming? By the way, his women had already been guided away. Only Gila was there. But how does he break her programming? Okay. He stops the swirling disc, stands in front of her, and says, "Repeat after me. I am not a pleasure unit. I am not a pleasure unit." And he snaps. She's like, okay, so remember I talked about how, it's a parody of spy films a little bit. There's actually something a little bit, there's a message here. More so than you get in a Bond film, which is really good guys versus bad guys. This has a lot to do individuality in the face of the machine. And this is a really good summation of it. Something we all need to remember. None of us are units in some collective. We're individuals. No matter how much some people want to turn us into collectives. Well, Gila takes him to the reward room to find his ladies, and he discovers that the narcotics that 0008 was after are part of Galaxy's plan. They keep people drugged up. They keep people sexed up. They use people. They treat people like pawns, like objects. These are some really evil people. And frankly, evil hasn't changed all that much in the last 60 years, has it? Because we see sort of that kind of stuff nowadays. Some of the folks who want to take over the world. Well, Flint breaks the spell on his ladies like he did with Gila, and freeing them, he leaves them with Gila in this room that kind of looks like an ice chamber, right? So he can go squash Galaxy's plans for world domination. First makes his way into this communications room, sends a message out to Cramden, or really whoever, with a sort of a Morse code, but it's in his particular code. This is just as the U.S. fleet is arriving to capitulate to Galaxy. And just about this point, Cramden's getting a call from the president. By the way, the president's voice in this is done by Van Williams, the Green Hornet, impersonating LBJ as he did at the end of the 1966 Batman movie. Kind of a weird, interesting little snippet there. Van Williams imitates LBJ twice in movies in 1966. Okay, well, the Galaxy heads pick up this Morse code as well. They send Rodney to check out the communications room. Flint's already out of there, and he's moving through the complex looking for ways to sabotage things, and he does. So we end up with all the bad guys, the goons, chasing Flint through here as he's sabotaging stuff, and he's quite successful at it as well. But of course, it all comes down to Flint versus Rodney, and you could probably guess that Rodney does not come out on top in this one. Well, as he's putting the final touches on destroying this complex, the scientists, the evil scientists, show up to try to convince him of the paradise that they're going to create. He goes, "All I have to do is just take a bite out of your apple." Well, no thanks. But ours would be a perfect world. Why? Because it's your idea of perfection, gentlemen, not mine. Control is not paradise. Well, the scientists decide it would be better for them to surrender than to allow this complex to be destroyed. All their great work destroyed. I mean, and actually, it looked like it could serve as a pretty nice resort. And so they're saying, no, we'll surrender. And he's kind of listening to them. They don't want to see any more lives lost. There's no point to it now. But Rodney ain't done yet. Rodney awakens from having gotten kind of smacked around. And he tries to kill Flint and ends up killing the scientists, kind of blowing everything up. Well, the base starts evacuating, again, kind of reminiscent of Austin Powers at the end of that movie. Flint goes to grab the people who are dearest to him and get them out. How does he get them out? I'm not telling you. Go watch the movie. It's very clever. It's very fun. But they do get out. They reach the American aircraft carrier, and true to form, Flint ignores a call from the President of the United States to celebrate with the women that he loves, including Gila. And then the volcano blows up. Everybody cheers. End of film. Roll the credits. Our man Flint. It's a fun movie. Like I said, it's not super fast-paced. It's kind of a smart action comedy, right? But I really do like the underlying message to it, which, like I said, you don't really get an underlying message in Bond films. It's mostly good guys versus bad guys. And in the books, you know, the good guys are not necessarily super good, even if the bad guys are pretty bad. But here, it's a little bit more. Here, we're talking about freedom, individuality, in the face of conformity, in the face of the machine, in the face of people being units. That's what Flint is all about. That's how he lives his life. That's why those 4 women love him. Okay, I mean, yeah, it's a weird situation. And there's definitely a male fantasy aspect to it. But male fantasy is not generally geared towards, independence of those women. They could leave if they want to. And in the sequel, which is a little bit campier, you find out that those particular 4 women did go on to do other things. Great things, in fact. So that's kind of what Flint was there for, Kind of ships passing in the night, but not in such a way as to be like, they're objects and he's done with them. No. Not at all. Good advice, by the way. Don't ever treat people like objects, especially the people who are close to you in your life. It will not go well for you. And it shouldn't go well for you if you do that. So you got that. It's also interesting how he is kind of a Sherlock Holmes character. He's good at everything, like Batman, etc. But they do make it work in the context of the movie. I really like that. It's a fun flick. I discovered it when I was a teenager, and I'll be honest, man, I like this as much as I like any James Bond films. Different vibe to it, similar subject matter, but a different vibe. But it's just so damn cool, man. And I don't know if anybody but Coburn could have pulled something like this off at that time. Maybe Shatner, but I don't know that Shatner was ever kind of grounded enough for that. At least not in those days. As much as I love Captain Kirk, there's a sort of, Coburn's kind of grounded, as cool as he is. He's also kind of, maybe it's that groundedness that makes him cool. I don't know. Point is, love Our Man Flint. The sequel, like I said, a little campier and a little funnier, but also a really great movie. 2 of my favorites. Check it out if you've seen it, if you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, let me know in the comments what you think. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this review of Our Man Flint, please give it a like. Maybe think of subscribing, sharing with a friend. That would be very cool. Help my little channel to grow here. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. Watch a Flint movie. And I will hopefully see you again soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture.